Hi everybody, and welcome back. I think the sessions so far have been absolutely incredible. And as we truck on, I'm unashamedly excited about the next presentation and question and answer session. It is about the first treatment for this group of conditions, and Professor James Bainbridge will be joined by the first person to receive the treatment, Jake Ternent. So please welcome both of the guys onto the presentation, and please do get some questions in about 15-20 minutes. We'll have a chance to do a live Q&A. So thank you very much.
A great pleasure to be able to talk to you today about this very exciting development in the treatment of inherited retinal disease. So this is about Luxturna, which is the first of a new generation of treatments for people with sight impairment. And it's provided by the NHS and is hugely exciting to witness. This new approach is possible because of a massive advance in the science and the surgery. As an eye surgeon myself, I've been working with scientists for 20 years to help capitalize on these advances for the benefit of people affected by genetic eye disease. And I'm delighted to be joined by Jake Ternent, who was the first person in the UK to have this treatment. So I'm going to explain how it works and how it can help, and then ask Jake to describe his experience of the treatment. So our health depends on the health of all the specialized cells that make up our tissues and organs. Each cell depends on its genes to provide the detailed information required for its normal development, function, and survival. And each cell has its own copy of all the genes, though specialized cells draw on only a specific subset of the full complement of genetic material. If a gene is missing, faulty, or damaged, the resulting misinformation can harm a cell's development, function, or survival. Depending on its effect and the specific cell type, tissue, and organ, this can have devastating consequences. So children who lack an essential gene called RPE65 have poor night vision from birth and develop progressively disabling impairment of sight. The new treatment, the new therapy we're talking about today, is a suspension of millions of healthy copies of the gene that's otherwise lacking. These genes are packaged in virus particles that have been modified to deliver them safely into the retinal cells that need them. The suspension is injected into the retina during keyhole surgery. This is performed one eye at a time and takes up to about an hour to do. The surgery is typically done under general anesthetic. People are able to go home the same day. Luxturna is the only available gene therapy for eye disease. Luxturna is designed specifically for RPE65 and can only work for that particular condition. So for this reason, it's essential to test to confirm the genetic cause. The gene provides the instructions for cells in the eye to make one of the chemicals critical for healthy sight, and it can only work in eyes that have sufficient number of surviving cells. And it's expected to work best in people at an early stage of disease. The potential to benefit can be estimated from sight tests and scans of the retina to check that there are indeed a sufficient number of surviving cells that might benefit. So trials of the treatment found that it can improve night vision, and it's hoped that this will translate into protection of sight in the long term. So in 2017, Luxturna was approved for use in the United States by the FDA, and in 2019 it was approved in the UK by NICE for provision by the NHS. So there are about 100 people in England currently eligible for the treatment, and it will also be available for the handful of children born with the condition every year. So there are 3 treatment centres in England: in London, which includes Moorfield and Great Ormond Street, Oxford, and Manchester. So far, about 10 affected people have been treated, and that includes adults and children. And as I mentioned before, Jake Ternent is the first person in the UK to have been treated. So Jake Ternent is from Durham, and he's 24 years old. Jake was the first person in the UK to be treated, and I'm delighted that Jake's here to describe for himself his experience of this treatment. Jake was invited because as a young adult, his condition was not too far advanced for treatment to be effective, and he was in a position to judge for himself the balance of benefits and risks. So Jake, welcome.
Thank you, Professor.
Can I start by asking you to tell us about your experience of growing up with sight impairment?
Yeah, so it's been like this since birth, and I don't know anything else. This is what it's been like since as young as I can remember. Really, I can't really compare my eyesight to somebody who's got in inverted commas normal sight, because I don't know what it is. But my sight has been difficult. Like you spoke of, how the night vision is quite bad, if not non-existent. Day vision isn't much better. The seasons, it depends on the seasons quite well. So winter months and autumn months is quite difficult, whereas summer and spring is a lot easier. Well, easier. It also can depend on health. I can tell if I'm getting on well by the fact that my vision gets worse or something like that. So growing up with this vision it's difficult, but you have to get on with it.
How did it affect how you manage socially?
Yes, it's difficult. It can cause embarrassing moments of walking into things and tripping over things when it's school, especially. It can make a few people chuckle, and as a young person, it was quite embarrassing for me. Growing up through school and tripping over things and stuff, and people seeing and then pointing and laughing, just a stereotypical kid thing to do. But as I've got older, I've realized that I can't really do anything about it, and sort of need to just sort of concentrate on what I can change and what I can do to sort of stop things like that from happening.
And how about your schoolwork and education? How did you manage?
Yeah, difficult. Difficult with a capital D. A lot of so when I started going to school, computers were sort of the new thing. I was actually very lucky to be taught to touch type at a young age, which helped me use a computer and technology like that way. But it was difficult, having to get things enlarged all the time, and teachers not being the best at explaining things to someone who hasn't got the best of vision. So yeah, it was difficult, but got through it, and I've been to university and picked up a foundation degree in sports coaching and sports science. So it's yeah, I've done all right for myself.
It's brilliant, despite all the challenges. That's really impressive. So you mentioned that you were anticipating that your sight might become progressively impaired in the future.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel about the future?
I was actually really quite nervous about it. I'm sure as anyone else who's got working eyesight can understand, having something where you know that it's going to be going completely was quite anxious and made me nervous and a little bit depressed in some ways as well. From the age of about 15, I was actually put on antidepressants because of the anxiety and the nervousness caused by the fear of losing vision. You can understand that, anyone can. But from the treatment that I had last year, I've actually been able to wean myself off of the tablets to not be worried about losing sight at 40 or 30 and possibly maybe 50 or 60, depending on how things look in the future.
So that's fantastic. Just going back to how you were feeling before you had the treatment.
Yeah.
Did you have hopes for some kind of treatment in your lifetime?
No, not whatsoever. Not in my lifetime. I always imagined that it would be further down the line, and the research that I partook in for 16 years or so now would always help somebody else, help a child or an adult down the line in the late 21st century. And that was the idea. It was always to benefit someone else, not to benefit me. But I was fully behind the cause of helping such a rare eye condition. Like you said, only 100 people in the country are eligible for this new treatment. So it's rare, and the more data you can receive off of someone who has it, I thought was a better idea than just sitting back and not doing anything.
Well, that's very generous of you, Jake. How did you feel when you found out that you yourself were being considered for the treatment?
I was unbelievably shocked. I mean, you rang me on the Friday, I think, about 2 weeks before the treatment, and I knew of the treatment being approved because I read it on a news article. that NICE had approved it, but I was I didn't expect it to be me. I thought that the cells in the back of the eyes needed to be able to regenerate would be non-existent, or would be very few or not enough. So I was surprised when we done all the tests and I was able to have the treatment. It was a shocking thing. I think I'm still a bit shocked now. 13 months, 14 months onwards, it's still surprising. It seems sort of futuristic to expect that in this day and age.
So before you had the treatment, what did you hope might be achieved? What did you think might happen?
To be honest with you, I just wanted stabilization of some sort, whether that stabilized it for an extra 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, or even longer period, or something to just stabilize what I had now. Although I didn't have very much, it was still something to keep hold of, opposed to have nothing and not gain anything. Whereas even just stabilization is a positive for me. I could never imagine of an improvement, but it seemed to happen. We'll talk about that, I guess, a little bit later. But it was something rather strange in my eyes.
So you hoped that there might be some benefit in terms of protection of sight.
Yeah, for sure.
Were you worried at all about the risks of harm from the side effects of
Oh, certainly, yeah, certainly. But I weighed up the options of either lose it all, 10, 15 years time. And bearing in mind, this is the weakest eye that's been operated on, which is my right eye. So I don't have a lot of vision as it is in that eye. So I was like, well, the benefits outweigh the negatives. So, and I did actually turn down a clinical trial of a similar treatment about 3 or 4 years earlier, because they weren't sure on what the positives would be for that treatment, how long it would last for. So I thought, what, I'll give this one a go and see. It's been approved by NICE. It's already approved in the States by the FDA. It must be able to do some quite game-changing positive if it's been approved by all these bodies worldwide and is getting people are getting it in different countries and stuff. They must be doing something right.
So despite the risks, you felt confident to give it a go?
Especially when you've got the best hands in the business. You've got the best you've got the best surgeon in the world, period. I don't care what anyone says. I'm biased, but it's true. This man who I'm talking to right now has changed my life, and I'm so eternally grateful for it.
I think you're very brave, Jake. You're very brave.
It's not brave. I've got faith in medical science. I've got faith in you. I've got faith in our National Health Service. It's been incredible.
So going back to the operation itself, what can you tell us about your experience of the process and of the operation itself?
Yeah, so I arrived at Moorfields on, I believe it was 23rd of January, 2020. So just before the whole world decided that what happened in the world happened. So I was lucky in that sense. I arrived in the morning, got all these, the general sort of stuff done, where they put your name tag on and cannula and stuff like that, so they could put the anesthetic in. Got a marker line drawn around the right eye so they didn't do the wrong one. And I think about 9 or 10 o'clock, I went down for surgery, and that's all I can really remember about the pre-surgery bit. And post-surgery, my eye was patched over, so that's all I can really remember about the sort of, the immediate aftermath of the surgery. I seem to remember my mum calling that you and another professor who was in to watch the surgery, with it being, the first in the UK, came smiling like Cheshire cats before I came back out of what's it called? Well, you wake up, I can't remember what it's called.
Recovery.
Recovery, yeah. And said he was smiling like Cheshire cats, and they thought there was something up, but he said he was so happy and pleased with the surgery. And I mean, it's something, like I said, that has changed my life for the better.
So you came out of surgery with a patch on your eye.
Yeah.
And then you were staying locally, weren't you?
Yeah, I was staying in a hotel across the road. Went back there, lay there, panicked all night, because I was worried in case I'd done something wrong, or I turned over in my sleep, something like that. Because you guys had done all the hard work, and in my eyes, if I messed it up now, it was a big problem. So I didn't sleep until about after 11 o'clock at night, I didn't start to sleep, and then I woke up in the morning. I was like, oh, I don't know if I turned over or anything like that. I was really panicking sort of side of things, because it was then the part of recovery and hopefully healing, and whatever positive outcome could be.
So tell us what happened the following day when you woke up after your
So I woke up, I went back to Moorfields to see one of the research fellows who had been partaking in a similar study. She checked my eye, seen what it was, took the first sort of the major patch off so that I could see, and it was actually quite of a weird moment in some ways. I didn't know what the outcome was. I didn't know how the eye was going to perform or anything like that, and to have this eye open, although the vision wasn't perfect because it was still healing, it was to know that, okay, it looks like it's went the right way. You've still got, I can still see people's faces. I can see enough. Hopefully it's going to continue to go the right way. It was quite a relief moment sort of thing, as I'm sure you can imagine. And after that, checked the eye, looked into the eye, make sure everything was good. Got given some eye drops to use. I think it was steroid eye drops just to help the process, and got the train back up home up to Durham later that day.
That's great. So you were in and out pretty quickly.
Yeah, quite lucky.
So tell us about how your sight has been since the operation itself.
So I'd probably say it took about 3 weeks to heal, roughly 3 to 4 weeks, to where I could start to see somewhat normal, like I could before the operation. After the surgery, about 2 to 3 months afterwards, I was starting to notice slight improvements, and then sort of major improvements. Really, I always say that they look small on in numbers in terms of data, looking at data, but in terms of a small change in that eye for me was a massive improvement, because, like I said, I was so reliant on the dominant eye.
So what exactly did you notice was changing?
So I was able to see certain things better. My night vision was improved, which again, for someone who didn't have anything, was nuts. Being able to see maybe like the tap to wash your hands at night or something, or to see my toothbrush in dim light was crazy. Being able to watch football, which we all know I'm very passionate about, and being able to track the ball from a player to another player, which is something quite small for a regular sighted person, but can take the immersiveness out of it if you can't see it, and then having both eyes being able to work together. That was like 3 or 4 months afterwards, having the right eye being able to help the left eye was incredible.
So that must be enormously exciting to have experienced that improvement when you weren't expecting it.
Yeah, certainly. Like I said, I went into treatment with, it wasn't like if something went wrong, it went wrong, but the benefits totally outweigh the negatives, and luckily for me, my body was able to help and sort of regenerate the cells needed after the operation to kickstart the whatever the I don't know the science behind it exactly, but in order for me to be able to see slightly better, been going down for tests again after the operation just to see how things had went, and being able to pick certain lines, certain letters up on lines on optometrist tests that I never been able to pick up before with the right eye was stupid. Being able to read my phone text, okay, it's large text, but it was not, something I never did. I used to just always have my phone sort of to the left-hand side of my face. Yeah.
That's remarkable. It's amazing to hear that it's had this effect on your sight and the effect it had on your life.
Yeah.
So what kind of effect do you think experiences like your own might have on other people in a similar situation, children and adults?
If anyone asked me about this, if parents asked me, for the children, or if anyone came up to me and said, "What would you say?" I would say, go for it. 100%. This stuff is futuristic, but it's realistic. Don't expect miracles. Don't expect your vision to come back overnight. It's a long process, and don't expect massive changes depending on how old you are, or depending on how far the sight's been deteriorated. As a child, maybe they might get more improvements because of the lack of deterioration in the sight, but just 100% go and get it. If you can get it on our, if you live in our country and you can get it on our health service, 110%, go for it.
Well, Jake, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your experience of this. It's great to see you doing so well.
Thank you for everything.
It's great to hear your words of encouragement to other people in the same situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, and welcome back, and a huge welcome to Professor James Bainbridge and Jake Ternent, who are here to share a live Q&A with us. Thank you both. Just to let you know, Jake, that the delegates have been chatting on our conference platform with huge appreciation for you sharing your story with us today, and thank you so much for both of you taking the time to be here live as well. So we have, characteristically for Retina UK conferences, a pile of questions, which is extremely high. So I think that we should maybe stack on and try and get through some of them. So first, for Professor Bainbridge, what does this mean for future treatments?
Well, I think this is a fantastic step forward. It's a real landmark in the development of a new technology. At the moment, that technology is one that can be applied to one particular, quite rare form of inherited retinal disease. But I think that the recent findings in research and the fact that the benefit is so marked that it's persuaded the NHS that this sort of thing is justified in terms of funding, just demonstrates the potential power of the technology. And I think that in the first instance, it's exciting to see that these people with a rare form of inherited disease can benefit. And it's going to be exciting to see how that small population of people respond to the treatment. And it offers promise for similar treatments for people with other forms of inherited retinal disease. I have to emphasize that for other conditions, it's very early days. And there's quite a lot of work to be done in order to find out the best ways of applying this technology. And so we can't expect new treatment for other conditions imminently. But on the other hand, it does offer really exciting promise for those conditions in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Jake, it's a pleasure to speak to you live.
Pleasure to speak to you.
And it sounds like there's been some remarkable improvements with just having the one eye treated. Are you looking to get your second eye done? And what are your hopes?
Well, actually, I had the second eye done about 3 weeks ago.
Right. Oh, fantastic.
So 3 weeks on Thursday, just gone. So I'm in the recovery process with that eye now. And yeah, it's hopes. I mean, hopes are sky high, as you can imagine, after the first operation being so successful. I'm seeing Professor Bainbridge on Tuesday for a checkup, and he's going to tell me what he told me about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, that everything's going the right way, which is what I believe. With the second eye, but the first eye, I mean, it's incredible. I still feel so lucky that our NHS and NICE in this country has approved this treatment, because I am the positive example as to look what happens when you give this kind of stuff to someone who probably was going to lose their sight within 10 to 15 years, and now is looking at possibly not losing that in 10 to 15, maybe 20 to 30 years time. You just don't know, but it's life is positive now. It's not negative.
That's amazing, and just absolutely just wonderful to hear. On behalf of the community, it just gives such hope. Just very quickly, what was the time difference between the first eye and the second eye being operated on? Just to give an idea of
So obviously we had the global pandemic in the middle of it, but
it doesn't help.
No, yeah, I think it was 14 months, if I think so. So it was January 2020 was the first eye, the right eye, and March 2021 was the second eye. So 14 months or so.
And Professor Bainbridge, would that be typical, regardless of pandemic, moving forward?
No, I'm afraid that is atypical in the context of the pandemic. It's highly atypical. The intention is that people will be able to have treatment for their second eye within a few weeks of their first.
Right.
And so Jake's experience has been very different.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know for our audience. So, Professor Bainbridge, we've had a question about the level of visual acuity required to be suitable for the treatment. Could you give just a short amount of information on that?
So it's important to understand that this particular treatment is only relevant for people with one specific gene defect. And so it's specific to people who have defects in the gene called RPE65. And this treatment cannot help people with gene defects in other conditions. It's also dependent on the survival of some of the cells in the retina, because it's not realistic to expect cells to work properly if they're too degenerate. And so those are the two conditions on which the treatment is made available. In terms of visual acuity, there is no hard and fast cutoff. So as long as we can persuade ourselves that people have sufficient cells and that their condition is due specifically to the defect in RP65, then they are likely to be eligible for the treatment.
Right. Thank you. That's great to know. Jake, could you just give us a brief overview of the best and the worst aspects of the process that you've been through?
I really don't believe there's been a sort of worst. I suppose the worst aspect is the mental side after the operation for me. I always had the fear of doing something wrong or doing something to jeopardize the outcome or the healing process. That was probably the sort of the worst point for me. I mean, you get, if you get any operation, you get an itchy sort of part of whatever part of your body it is, it gets itchy because it's healing and stuff like that. So I just used a bit of reverse psychology. So when it was the right eye, I would itch the left eye, and when it was the left eye, I'd itch the right eye. So it sort of stopped it from itching, just on top of the eye. And then positives. God, the list is just so long. I mean, every single facet of my vision in my right eye is seemed to have improved of some sort. Peripheral vision, color vision. It's not, the treatment's obviously not for like my short-sightedness, but I believe that's improved slightly as well. So, I mean, the list goes on and on as to the positives. There's so many more positives than there are in the negatives. You get a little bit of a dull ache sort of thing, after the operation, but it's the same as operating on a knee, operating on a foot, or whatever. You get the same sort of pain, I'd imagine. So, it's not really, this has not really been a worst part, so to speak.
I'm sure for the community to hear that is just an amazing reassurance. And
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's everyone's experience probably will be different because we're all individuals and stuff. But for me personally, there's been no bad experience. The funny thing is, though, is when the eye's healing, is the vision that you have. It's like you're looking through cloudy water. Right. So that's a bit of an interesting thing. And with the air bubble, that's they put an air bubble in to make sure that the solution gets to the right part of the retina. That's an interesting thing. It's like you've got a little mirror in your eye that reflects all the light back in. It's really interesting, but yeah. But luckily, in the left eye, that's dissipated now. So now vision's starting to get back to what it was before, and possibly even better. I mean, it's early days yet, but with the left eye, we'll see how it continues to heal and develop over time.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jake. Professor Bainbridge, is this something that Jake and other patients will have to go through more than once, or is it just a one-off treatment?
So the intention and the expectation is that a single treatment will be sufficient to provide benefit in the long term. At the moment, it's very exciting to see the improvements that Jake's describing, and the hope is that will also provide protection of sight in the long term. Certainly, our experience in the laboratory has shown that it can last for many years. But of course, in humans, this is the first time we've been able to try it, and so only time will tell. But the treatment is designed to last for a long period. It's designed to be sustained, and it's not the sort of operation that one would wish to repeat on a regular basis, because the risk of side effects is likely to be cumulative.
Right, I see. And is the treatment only available in England at the moment?
No, it's available in many countries, including the States, other countries in Europe, including Germany, France, Belgium, so on. And so it is widely available. There are some countries where it has yet to be approved, but it's certainly available outside the UK.
Thank you. That's fantastic information. We've had a question around if the body can reject the therapy, and has this happened at all in any treatments to date?
So that's a very interesting question, and because the people with the condition lack a particular gene and the protein that it provides, then there is a concern that they may reject, if you like, the new gene or the new protein, and that could limit the benefit and potentially cause harm if there's a inflammatory response associated with that rejection. The experience to date suggests that there can be some inflammation associated with the surgery, not least because the virus, which is used to carry the gene into the eye, can cause some inflammatory responses. However, for the most part, that seems to be relatively mild and controllable, and that actually there's very little evidence of any harm from rejection of the gene or the protein itself. So on the whole, that seems to be good news, that it's not a major problem.
Yeah, it's fantastic to know. And how do you currently select who receives this treatment, and how do you prioritize the group?
So as we discussed before, the treatment is made available specifically to people who have defects in the gene called RPE65. Often people are referred for treatment by their local retina specialist, having identified that that's the gene affected. And so we have something in the order of maybe 40 or 50 people in the UK at the moment that we know about who might stand to benefit. And at the moment, we are prioritizing those who stand to benefit most, because their retinas are in the most healthy state otherwise. But we expect to be able to provide treatment to these people within the next year or two. And so it's unlikely that a wait of a few months is going to have an impact on their response to the treatment. Once we've managed to provide treatment for those people that would like it, we expect there'll be a handful of children born each year who may stand to benefit.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So we've all heard that all sorts of NHS services and operations, and even Jake's second operation has stopped or slowed to COVID. Has that been a generic impact across all these types of treatments?
Absolutely, yes. So this, although we've been able to manage to continue with emergency surgery during the pandemic, treatments for elective surgery, routine surgery has suffered, I'm afraid, but we are encouraged now that with the improvements in treatment and the vaccinations in particular against COVID, we've been able to get things moving again in the last few weeks, such that we are able to address the backlog of surgery, and that includes people having this particular treatment. So since the restart of elective surgery, we've been able to perform Luxturna surgery, Luxturna delivery. So I'm very optimistic that despite the backlog, we'll be able to provide this as planned.
That's fantastic news. So we've only got just a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. So I've got a question for Jake. So the Retina UK team and all of the delegates on today are all completely connected in what we do, and that supports the visually impaired community as a whole. If you could give us one tip that we seem to have missed in the past or may miss in the future, what would it be?
That's interesting. Got me caught there. That's it. I just always remember that the wide spectrum. Everyone's individualized. That's the one thing I'd always say is I know that I don't believe that you've ever tried to throw a broadsheet over everyone, but that's the thing I say to all sort of, you know, visually impaired charities or whatever, is just everyone's always an individual, and you know, they might have the similar strain of a condition, but it could be, you know, still completely different from one person to another.
I think that's absolutely excellent advice. And I think on that note, just a huge thank you to both of you coming to share with us today. It's been hugely impressive and useful for us moving forward. So take care and enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much.